Hello, welcome to the video. I'll show you how you can change some settings here or set up these BlueStacks. The version I'm using here is 4.160. You can find this, it's on BlueStacks now, but in the future there are going to be different versions. But these settings should be universal, as I did use these BlueStacks over many years actually. It didn't change much of the simple settings, so let me show you how this works. So if you want to play mobile games on PC, you can use these BlueStacks. There's so many options, so many devices you can use this on, because this program has a lot of options for setting up for lower tier hardware as well as higher tier or faster graphic card or processor, as well as lower speed processors and graphic cards. So how do we do this? Well, when you install this BlueStacks from the installation file that you download from internet, it will create some multi-instance manager, this one, hope you can see. And on this manager you can pretty much just tell this program how much of the hardware resources it should use for the program. So let me show you. So first of all, this one is running and there are settings here. So what these settings do is pretty much you can tell this like FPS limits. It can go from 1 to 60 for this instance, and alright, that's pretty much it. Next we get we're gonna close this out because I do run this instance, and all the settings for instance are gonna be when you run the instance. So this is pretty much just basics. I'm gonna stop actually. Let me show you. Just gonna stop this instance that is running. I want to show you full settings from here, from multi-instance, and then we're gonna start this one instance, so you can see how you can set up all the stuff, all the rest of the settings. Alright, it's gonna take a little bit. Alright, so now you see it did stop, and now allows me to see instance settings. So two things are for instance settings: display and engine. Display is for your graphics or output, how much of the resolution and frames per second you want for this instance. So I have by default 1920 by 1080 here, but you can change it. Like here is suggested 1600 by 900 because it's 16 to 9. I don't know why it's recommended like this, but it does run perfectly fine for 1080, which is for my monitor default. And DPI I have 240, pretty much in the middle of these two. I'm not sure what that exactly means, but I just left it like that. Landscape, yeah, landscape is not, you don't have to change that. Engine here, the difference is if you have a higher-end graphic card you can use DirectX, but OpenGL runs for every device, so it's pretty much more universal thing. DirectX is more like for Windows, I guess, if you run on high-end devices, high-end PCs, and you have this acceleration what's called engines, you can use DirectX, but just use OpenGL. It works fine, works perfectly for every device, for every game, and I cannot recommend DirectX, even though it's good for high-end devices. It works well, but OpenGL, just because it's a general thing, more general, just use that. Advanced graphic engine mode, I don't know, I don't use that. It may lower down your resolution, or not resolution, but frames per second, but you don't need that. Pretty much going to be minimal difference. You're not going to be a pro player if you run BlueStacks to playing games on, so you don't have to have all the details perfect. You can run without that. Next, GPU settings. Prefer dedicated computer graphics. When you have like AMD Radeon, or if you have NVIDIA GeForce graphic cards, newer versions, you can run this as I use this GTX 1063 GB. It's a pretty good card for running this program, I guess, and it's pretty good for running this this setting, GPU preferred dedicated graphics. So I did check it on. I'm not seeing any much difference if you don't use it, but yeah, if you want to play games and stream, for example, you might use this NVIDIA or Radeon. I think it's called Vega or something like that for AMD graphic card. Alright, next, ASTX texture. You don't need that. Pretty much if you have higher end graphic cards, you can use that. Next, performance. I will go with custom here, because if you have some CPU that has a lot of cores, you can pretty much lower down the requirements here, or you don't have to dedicate all the cores for your app, so you can run something else. Like if you stream, for example, you can use OBS for on the rest of the cores and just 4 cores for gaming. It works pretty well. For memory, it's recommended 1800. I just up a little bit just to have a little more, but it didn't show too much bottleneck if you lower this down. But I guess there is some problems if you go with 600 and you want to run the latest games that are like big games, like the one I'm going to show you, which is Call of Duty. It can lower down the game, I guess. It can be a little laggy. So yeah, somewhere in the middle should run for every game. It's pretty good. Frame rate, I guess just go with 60 frames per second. Mobile games are very light. Even those high-end games will be very light, so you can run pretty smoothly 60 FPS. I don't see any problems with that. Alright. It says here may affect some performance of some entry-level PCs, but entry-level meaning like early 2000 years. So yeah, this one just 60%, it will work, or 60 FPS will work very well. Alright, so that's instance settings, and we're gonna run this. So we're gonna start this one, and we're gonna switch to settings of one instance in running the game. So, and by the way, all of these settings, all the graphic settings we set up in Engine, we can set up when you run instance. So pretty much you don't have to use this multi-instance manager if you just want to run one game at a time. It's just one instance would be nice. Would be just fine. You can set up everything here. Just starting here. The thing is, when you first install BlueStacks, if this instance doesn't run smoothly, sorry about that. If this instance doesn't run smoothly, you should restart. So if it doesn't start completely this line, for example, sometimes you run first time this app and just stops for like 99% and doesn't do anything. Just restart this app and it should install perfectly. So don't worry about that. It happens. I'm not sure why, but I guess if you have some other programs running in the background can impact that. For example, Windows wait for that app to close. Maybe it's using some memory or something like that. So yeah, just restart, it should run. Alright, so I have a few games here, and I want to run this Call of Duty now, because I want to show you settings in the game, how you can set up this thing. And it says here, smart controls enable, use F1 to override. So this smart controls will show you just when the game runs. It will show me for my keyboard a few settings with the smart controls, and some games do use this smart control, because in some games some games have different modes of play, like battle royals are different than like multiplayer or like a player versus player. So yeah, we'll show you just a second to start this thing. Alright, so it should log in automatically here. Yeah, alright. While we're waiting, you can see here it has some regular general keyboard settings, but we're not going to use those. We're not going to look at those. You can set up things here as well, but we're going to change. And also these settings, it just shows which one you use when you run the game. I don't change anything. Yeah, I don't change anything here. You don't have to do it. 720p, I'm not sure why this app It kind of changes from my 1080p. But let's go to game settings here as we are in the game. Alright, so we're gonna go on keyboard settings. This is what you need. Alright, so you can see a big mess of keys, and yeah, big mess of this what's called controls on the screen. So what this even means is, you can see here it says smart, and we have some different mods here. We have battle royale, we have multiplayer, we have zombie. Because this game have different mods, the keys will be on different place. For example, here if you want to press start, you press E on the loading screen, and if you're in zombie mode it can be a little different, this C key for something else. So let's go to smart, and you can see some keys are repetitive here. For example, here is C and C, so it did change a little bit because of the position of the keys that you want to press, and also R here. So for different game modes in the game, if you use the smart controls, you can set up like for different keys what you press on keyboard, how it reflects in the game. So what are controls? You have this tap spot, that's a general just key tap, and you use the control on the screen. For example, here on start, if you want to use start, just put that there, and you can change which key. Just put that in the field and press the key. That's easy. Repeat a tap, well, if there's some control, although I don't see that in games, you can put this one, which means like a double click if you need, or double tap on something to open, but you don't need that. D-pad, well, that's for controls. WASD, I guess, very standard thing. Hope you can see on the bottom left corner where I'm pointing here. It does have two, because of different two modes in the game. Like I think zombies and battle royale use those. So yeah, you can use that. You should use that in pretty much every game where you have movement, like battle royale games. Yeah, aim, pan, and shoot. That's actually for shooting games where you want to use your mouse to use as a to target with mouse. So just to use your mouse to navigate in the game. So you can use that thing. You just put it on the screen anywhere you want, and that will use your mouse. It will tell you which key you should press to use it. I think it's F11 or F1 or F11. I'm not sure which one. I think F11 is for full screen, or maybe F2 would be like to use. I set up mine to be right click. I'm trying to see where it is showing. Yeah, right click here. So I did put it on the right click over here. So when I click on the right click, it will capture my cursor, and I can use it in the game for aim. Alright, next. Zoom. Well, that's pretty much for snipers and all that, where you use like plus and minus. So you can use to scroll up and down as well. I'm not going to use that now. Skill pad. That's like... skill pad is if you're using a controller, I think, but don't use that at all. Swipe, that's normal. You just move left and right. You can see here I already have those on the field. They have two of this, so just move left and right, and that's for racing games mostly, but you can also find it in shooting games like here in Call of Duty. So you can steer more precisely. For example, in racing game you can steer more precisely because of every movement. It doesn't have like in keyboard when you press on the right side, it just quickly goes to the right. No, but it moves the wheels on steering just a little bit when you, depending on how far you move your mouse left to right. Next, free look. You don't need that, but it's pretty much like controlling the view in the game. Wherever you have that thing, you can use the free look. So let me see what it shows. Yeah, there it is. Up and down, left, down. So yeah, that's like if you have a camera to look in the, for example, a shooting range or something like that in a shooting game. Next, tilt. Well, this is, for example, if a game has a tilt, like Mario Kart, for example, if you tilt your phone, it will steer. For those games you can use this tilt, and script you want if you wanna add some program like what action you can define some actions, like I don't know, pressing multiple keys in an order or something like that. It will do some action. So yeah, that's it. I guess those are main controls. When you change stuff, it will if you select here, for example, if you select smart, and if you change something, it will create another thing. So, or you can just create a new scheme here. Very easy to make, but I think just going with default, if game has smart, just go with that. Automatically will change for different game modes. If you don't have those, just select like default and then make a little changes. Like for example, in Pixel Gun game, I need to make some changes depending on which mode I'm playing, like battle royale to, I don't know, team fights or something like that. So yeah, in this one we have smart mode, so I can just make a bunch of commands in different these modules, and smart one will just combine those and change them depending on the game. Alright, we're gonna undo that, so we don't need to save them. Alright, and we're gonna close this in, and now it removes the controls from the screen, so pretty much you can use them now, but they're invisible. You just need to, I guess, remember them, how you can use them in the while controlling the game. Alright, that's pretty much all. Next I want to show you these settings. You can see where I'm pressing here. On these settings you can just make the same changes as I did here on this multi-instance manager. You have display, you have engine, pretty much the same, like OpenGL, like texture and everything. We're not going to change that. And then you have like notification, if you want this to pop on the what's called notification area in your Windows. Preferences, you have language, close web pages when running game. Alright, yeah, you can copy paste those. They're just default, I didn't change them. This cleanup, I don't use that, I'm not sure what that even means. And this is which device you want this to emulate. You can create a custom profile, or you can just use a predefined which actually emulates particular device, like here OnePlus 3T, which is probably a mobile phone. And there's plenty of those. Samsung Galaxy S10, you have S8 Plus, Xperia, and all that kind of stuff. But I just put on the default one. You don't have to change that at all, because it doesn't really matter. This is just how your apps will see your device, but all of those support the same thing, so you can run those. Alright, next. Yeah, you can use the short keys to manipulate on the basic settings of the instance, so lowering down volume or increasing volume. If you have a in-game sounds, you can do that in the game, but also you can use here with these hotkeys to change that without changing settings in the game. But I just love that as default. And of course here you have this version. Well, that's pretty much all. Okay, thanks for watching this video. See you next time. Bye.